Hey there everybody! Today we're going to be making these really fun paint dump marble pumpkins. The supplies you're going to need for this project are of course some plastic fake pumpkins. You'll need acrylic paints in various colors, make sure you have an abundance of them. You'll need 3 paper plates per pumpkin. You'll also need a plastic cup, a cake spatula, some gloves, a paintbrush, some fine gold glitter for the stems, Mod Podge, and you may also want a clear gloss spray paint to coat the pumpkins with. Okay, so I have my supplies here. I'm using various shades of pink for this project, for this particular pumpkin, and you can do them in all sorts of different colors. I am going to tape here, you'll see me tape the stem with some painter's tape. Now this is optional. I didn't list painter's tape in the supplies a second ago because as I did more pumpkins, I realized it's really not necessary because we're covering the stem anyways with some Mod Podge and gold glitter at the end. So it doesn't really matter if you get paint on it or not. However, if you just want to put some painter's tape on it for whatever reason, then now is the time to do that as well. But I've done it both ways, like I said, so totally up to you. Ultimately, it really doesn't matter too much as long as you're planning on covering it with some like gold glitter or some other color or something in the end once our pumpkin dries initially. Okay, you also want to make sure that you get some gloves on. Don't skip this step. It is important. Your hands are going to get messy and gloves really help try and control that mess a little bit there. So make sure you're working on a good surface that it's okay if you get some paint around you, lay a towel down or something. I have just a plastic cup here and various shades of pink for this one. It's good to use anywhere from 3 to up to 6 colors. You want to make sure you just shake your paints before you pour them into your cup. And this is, I would say, kind of like a medium-sized pumpkin. It's not overly large, but it's not super tiny either. And I used a little over half a cup of paint. This is just a red Solo cup. You can get them at, Walmart, Target, wherever. But I filled it a little over half. So be generous with your paint, and I'm just dumping each color in here as I go, layering it. Don't stir it or anything, just let it sit as it falls into the cup. That's what keeps the magic of that marble look on the pumpkin. We leave the paint undisturbed once we pour it into the cup. So I'm using like 5 or 6 pink shades here. You can use as little as 3, or I would say up to 6. I don't think I would go above 6 personally, but you can experiment with it and see what works well for you. Okay, so now the part where we actually dump our paint. Move your cup right into the center of your paper plate there, and then place the pumpkin upside down on the cup. Get a good firm grip on the cup and the pumpkin, and in one swift motion flip it over and set the pumpkin down onto your paper plate, and you'll see the paint start to automatically seep out, and just slowly lift it. Kind of let it lift in waves. You see how my first bit of paint just kind of seeped out there, and then you see more coming out and more coming out. Kind of let it come out in waves if you can. Just don't lift it up really quickly. Kind of go slow when you lift it. And then you can grab that cake spatula that I talked about, and you can scoop out the rest from the bottom of the cup, because you will have a lot sticking to the inside of that cup. Just try not to stir it. Just try to give it one swift sort of push out of the cup so that you're not mixing the colors too much. Go ahead and set your cup and your spatula aside for now. And the next step here is really important. You need to make sure that you pick your pumpkin up, hold it by the stem and then by the bottom of the plate, and just sort of spin it around a little bit, shake it side to side, and kind of move it back and forth to get that paint to fall down the side of the pumpkin. You can't really see it here in my video, but there's actually sides of my pumpkin uncovered still near the very base of my pumpkin. So what I do to get those covered, and you'll notice this when you're doing yours, it's a little hard to see on camera. What I do to get those covered is I move the pumpkin over to a clean plate, and then you'll see we have a ton of paint left on our original plate. So just pull your pumpkin back over there, and with your spatula, just scoop a little bit of that paint anywhere that you see on the bottom of your pumpkin where it may not have covered with paint completely. Just scoop it back in that general area and let it fall back down the side. And once you do, you'll be able to pick up the pumpkin and kind of roll it around in your hands a little bit more and be able to get that paint to cover the bottom up there. If you're using a generous amount of paint, there should be very minimal problems with getting the entire pumpkin covered. So if you're finding it very difficult to get the pumpkin covered, then you probably didn't fill your cup up quite enough with paint. So just a little note there for you. So this is just our next round of kind of letting that paint spread out, let gravity do its thing, and get that paint to work its way down. You can see our pretty marbling effect is taking place here. And then you'll use your third plate to just go ahead and move it over and let it dry. You don't want to let it just sit in that pile of paint because then it can get really messy. So just move it over to another clean plate, and then you need to let it dry for at least 24 hours before we move on to the next step. Next, we're going to add our fine gold glitter to our stem. I'm using Mod Podge to make that happen here, and I'm just using a small paintbrush and I'm painting the Mod Podge onto the top of the stem there. If you did use painter's tape, make sure you've carefully removed that first before you add the Mod Podge on. So just make sure you're being fairly generous with your Mod Podge here. And then we're going to be sprinkling the glitter on. I end up using a very small spoon to sprinkle the glitter on. I tried just sort of turning the pumpkin upside down and sort of dunking it into the glitter, and that didn't really work out very well unless you have a whole lot of glitter in a really shallow bowl. So my method to solve that was just to sort of turn the pumpkin on its side and use a very small spoon and scoop it onto the sides of the stem, and then kind of just turn the pumpkin around in your hand and get all the sides of the stem and the top of the stem, and then shake off the excess into the bowl or under your plate or whatever that you're using on your surface there. I'm just tapping the pumpkin a few times here to get all that loose glitter off. And if some glitter kind of stuck to your pumpkin on the top, then just take a baby wipe or a damp cloth and just go around it and sort of wipe up the glitter, and it'll come right off. So you could absolutely leave your pumpkin just like this, kind of with a matte finish to it. But if you want to have more of a high gloss look to it, then that's what we're going to do next. So I've made a bunch of pumpkins, and now I'm going to move to the next step, and that's adding a high gloss coating to the pumpkins. So everything's good and dry. We have our pumpkins dry, our stem is dry, everything's good and dry. I have here a gloss clear spray paint, and this is just going to add not only some shine to the pumpkin, which I really like, but it also is going to protect the paint and seal in that glitter that much more, so you don't end up with glitter everywhere, because you know how sometimes glitter sheds. So just go around your pumpkin, short bursts of the spray paint right over the top of the pumpkin, on the sides, kind of move it around on the bottom there to get a full coverage, and just get that pumpkin covered if you want to add this step to your project. And then you'll need to set this aside for at least 30 minutes to dry before your pumpkin will be complete. And if you want to know my exact resources for where I found everything for this project, then you can hop over to my blog, which is linked in the top corner of this video, and you can get links to everything that I used. So my pumpkins are all glossed and dried now, so they look really fun and beautiful and colorful, which I love. You can make them in all different sizes, all different shades of colors, and you can really have a lot of fun with this. I just thought this was a really cool project to do. You could get the kids involved on this one, and super fun, super different, and a way to bring a lot of color to your fall decor. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.